That's where the story begins.
In the north of Texas, specifically in Denton County, there is a small town called Cooper Canyon, connected to the city of Denton by a small bridge that is only 32 meters long. At first glance, the bridge looks like an ordinary wooden bridge, worn down by time, but the truth is that this simple bridge is surrounded by a large number of stories and legends. It is said that you can hear terrifying screams and footsteps without anyone being there, and some have reported being scratched or hit while crossing by invisible entities. These events have caused the bridge to be ranked among the 5 most haunted places in the United States, and it has become a popular destination for thrill seekers. Many people believe that the cause of these terrifying phenomena is what is known as the Goatman. Hello and welcome today. I will tell you the story of the Devil's Goatman Bridge. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe and activate the bell so you get notified of the new story. The events of this story date back to the year 1846. At that time, Denton County in the U.S. had only recently been established, and officials were searching for a location to house the county's government offices. They settled in a small town called Bensonville, but after just 2 years, they had to move the office due to the scarcity of water. At that time, the Texas legislature decided that the new government seat would be in a city located on a high hill just 1 kilometer away from the old seat, and they named it Alton City. However, because of its proximity to the previous town, the water problem was not solved, and no one agreed to settle there except one person. With the increasing problems caused by contaminated water, residents petitioned to move the government offices to a different area to the north. And indeed, people started gradually moving until Alton City was completely abandoned. About 30 years after these events, in 1884, a company called King Iron decided to build a bridge made of wood and steel to connect the city of Denton with another city called Cooper Canyon. They named the bridge Alton Bridge in honor of the old government headquarters. The bridge was the only means of connecting Cooper Canyon to a famous cattle trading area located in Denton Forest. Wagons and horses crossed the bridge daily to transport goods, making it one of the busiest spots in the region. However, over time, people stopped using it after a newer, wider bridge was built, allowing wagons to pass in both directions, unlike the old bridge, which was narrow and obstructed movement. Thus, Alton Bridge and the surrounding area became completely deserted. In the last period when the bridge was used by pedestrians, many people complained about strange things happening on it. They would hear weird sounds coming from the surrounding forest, see strange movements in the river below the bridge, and notice giant shadows suddenly appearing between the trees before disappearing. The strangest of all was the testimonies that spoke of a massive creature standing at the end of the bridge, with a human body completely covered in thick black hair, and a goat's head with giant horns. This entity makes a terrifying sound, and whenever someone sees it on the bridge, it charges at them, but it vanishes suddenly as they approach. Due to the numerous terrifying sightings that took place on the bridge, it became widely known among people as the Goatman Bridge. The legend of the Goatman, or the entity known in folklore as Fawn, is a widely spread myth in the West. It tells of a giant creature, about 2.5 meters tall, with a body that is half human, half goat, covered entirely in hair and fur. Sometimes it walks on 2 legs, and sometimes on 4, leaving behind a foul odor wherever it moves. In mythology, the fawn is a fierce and wild carnivore, living in remote areas away from humans and abandoned roads. Here is the connection, as many believe that the fawn is the strange entity that haunts Alton Bridge. However, the truth is that popular legends tell a completely different story about this bridge, a story that has nothing to do with the fawn creature. The legend tells that during that period, there was a shepherd of African American descent named Oscar. Oscar and his family moved to a small house located directly north of the bridge. In a short period, he managed to achieve great success in his work, becoming the most famous sheep trader in the region. This success led him to decide one day to hang a sign on the bridge that read, "This road leads to the Goatman," referring to himself as a sheep trader, and also as a form of pride in the title goat, which means the greatest of all time. However, in America, there is an organization known as the KKK, Ku Klux Klan, a radical racist group known for its intense hostility toward anyone of non-American descent. When members of this group learned about the sign that Oscar had hung, which reflected his pride in himself, they decided on a night in August 1983 to attack his home. They kidnapped him from the middle of his family and took him to the Alton Bridge. There, next to the sign he had hung, they tied a rope to one of the bridge's pillars, placed the other end around his neck, and threw him off the bridge to hang him. But what happened was very strange. When they looked at the rope moments later, they found it empty and Oscar's body was not there. They didn't hear any sound of him falling into the water, and the river under the bridge looked completely normal, with no changes. In a state of panic, they all ran under the bridge and searched the area, but they found no trace of Oscar. At that moment, the group leader ordered his followers to return to Oscar's house and set it on fire with his wife and children inside as a threat, to see if he was hiding. But time passed, and the house and everything in it turned to ashes, and Oscar never appeared again. The legend says that Oscar's spirit began to appear at the bridge after this incident, in the form of a man with a goat's head, seeking revenge on everyone who had a hand in his death and the death of his family. It is said that locals reported many sightings of this figure at the bridge. However, they all agreed that Oscar did not harm anyone who was not involved in the tragic incident. The legend continues that Oscar kept chasing the members of the group who kidnapped and killed him, one by one, until none of them remained. Since then, he only appears between the trees, watching those who pass over the bridge. He only shows in his full form if you stop your car in the middle of the bridge, flash the headlights 3 times consecutively, or knock on the bridge's pillars 3 times, just like the group did before hanging him. Many locals believe this story, but some think that Oscar is a benevolent spirit appearing at the bridge, while the evil spirit that terrifies people and attacks them is that of the leader Steve. Steve was the leader of the KKK group that attacked Oscar, and he was known for his violence and satanic practices related to witchcraft. The tale says that Steve married 3 women, and they lived with him in a tragic life full of injustice and oppression. When he wanted to marry for the 4th time, he chose a woman who rejected him, but due to his arrogance, he decided to marry her by force. On the wedding day, the woman drank poison and killed herself. When Steve learned of this, he lost his mind and bit her to death, to the point where death reports stated that the bite was the primary cause of her death, not the poison. After this incident, Steve goes to the bridge, where he encounters Oscar's spirit, which ends his life. Since then, it is said that Steve's spirit became trapped at the bridge, attacking people who cross it. The legend says that if someone speaks his name while standing there, his spirit immediately appears and tries to harm them. Although the story of Oscar and Steve is the most famous tale associated with Alton Bridge, some people link the strange occurrences at the bridge to a completely different legend, one that dates back to the 1860s, before the bridge itself was even built. This time, the story is about a man named Jack Candle. Jack was also a sheep herder of African descent and very successful in his trade. As a result of his success, he was constantly in conflict with cowboys, who one day ended up attacking him and took him to a location in the forest near the site of Alton Bridge. There, they hanged him on a tree in a brutal way that caused his head to separate from his body. However, what happened next was that Jack was a practitioner of voodoo magic, so he did not die even after his head was severed. The legend says that his body kept moving through the forest without a head and attempted to attack those who killed him, but they managed to escape. After that incident, Jack caught a goat, slaughtered it, and removed its head to place it in place of his lost head. Since then, he appears in the area as a human body with a goat's head, hoping to find those who killed him to take revenge on them. There are many stories related to Alton Bridge, and all are tied to people who died and whose spirits remained trapped in the place for many years. Among these stories is also the tale of a woman who appears in broad daylight wearing a long dress, calling for her daughter, who is said to have fallen from the bridge into the river. When the woman jumped in an attempt to save her, she drowned as well. Since then, she has appeared in the same appearance she had before her death, calling and calling, but when no one responds, she screams and then disappears. But the truth is, if we return to the records, we will not find any incident involving a woman and her daughter drowning in that area. There is no evidence of a person named Oscar, Jack Candle, or even Steve, who was mentioned in the stories. All these are tales and legends from folklore that have expanded through the generations until many people began to believe them. Because of the reputation the bridge gained and the many stories told about it, it has become a fertile environment for anyone who practices magic and satanic rituals. Satanic worshippers began frequenting the location regularly to hold seances, offer sacrifices, and perform demonic rituals. So much so that pet stores in the Denton and Cooper Canyon areas completely stopped selling cats due to their use in rituals at the bridge. According to the testimony of everyone who has visited the bridge, it is filled with strange satanic symbols and remains of cat and squirrel bones, clearly indicating that they were sacrificed in satanic rituals. The repeated visits by satanic worshippers to the place have increased the likelihood that the bridge has become haunted by jinn and demons due to the rituals practiced there, rather than by the spirits of the people who died, as the legends claim. In the early 2000s, an incident occurred involving two children who were playing soccer on the bridge during the late afternoon, unaware that this place was forbidden for playing. The bridge was empty, far from people, and the weather was pleasant, with nothing to fear. But as they became absorbed in their game, they didn't notice the time until the sun had set and darkness began to fall. They then decided to leave, but before they could, they heard the sound of hooves hitting the wooden floor of the bridge as if an animal was approaching them, even though nothing was visible before them. The children were terrified and began running to leave the area. The child in the lead turned to check on his friend and found him suddenly lifted over the bridge's railing and thrown into the river. Despite the terrifying sight, the child bravely ran towards the river and jumped to save his friend. Strangely, when his friend asked him why he jumped off the bridge, the friend replied, "I didn't jump. Something lifted me and threw me." Incidents like this were not the only ones at Alton Bridge. Many people have confirmed that when they visit the place, they hear screams, see glowing eyes between the trees, and feel someone walking behind them, even feeling the heat of their body touch their backs. But when they turn around, no one is there. These tales led two adventurers and researchers of mysterious phenomena in 2018. They took their equipment and headed to the bridge at midnight to explore its truth. They documented everything with sound and video from the moment they entered until they left. After their video reached over 20 million views, the bridge became even more famous. The mystery surrounding Alton Bridge not only attracted content creators, but also inspired many writers and authors to write about it. One of the most famous among them was the author Becky Vickers, who wrote the book Secrets of the Goatman Bridge, which she spent 25 years writing, during which she delved into the mysterious stories and events that occurred there. Over the years, she has personally explored the forest, and she has experienced several mysterious phenomena. Sometimes, she felt hits or scratches on her back, along with the assistants who were with her, but they couldn't determine what caused it. She also mentioned that with every step she took in the forest, she would find animal bones, mostly cats, and other bones tied together in the shape of a pentagram, which was a clear indication of witchcraft and occult practices being performed in that place using animal bodies. She also found a full altar in the middle of the forest, between 3 trees, which is said to have been built by desert dwellers to communicate with jinn and demons. Her experience didn't stop there, as she insisted that she saw multiple times the shadows of people dressed in black with sacks on their heads, holding books in their hands. They appeared in the same form as the witches who lived in the 19th century, but they would suddenly vanish into thin air, just as they had appeared. Despite the many years Becky spent writing her research, neither she nor anyone else has been able to uncover the true secret of Goatman Bridge. Is it truly haunted by jinn and demons? Or are these all mere fantasies due to people's belief in folklore? Especially when we learn that the Knights Templar worshipped a demon named Baphomet, whose body was human, and its head was that of a goat. And so, we have reached the end of the story. I await your opinions, and if you have a story you want me to tell, write it in the comments and show your enthusiasm. Don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, and share with anyone you think will enjoy the story. For those who want to hear this story on Spotify or dive deeper into the details, you can get the full ebook, which contains additional events and exclusive insights not covered in this video. You'll find all the links in the description below.